Welcome to Detroit's Darkest Times. Go ahead and smash the big three before we get started and share. Today's story is about things my godmother has shared with me as I was coming up. And I want to start by saying that this story is really interesting. It's got multiple versions to it, so I'll try to get much as I can in this one, but this video here may be several parts because it takes place, over the years. So anyways, getting started, years back in Detroit City, I used to stay at my friend's house, and I had one friend that his mother, which was my godmother, she had money, and they lived out in Oak Park, Michigan. And the way she's the same lady that was assistant manager. If you've been watching my videos, she's the same lady that was assistant manager with my mother on Trumbull Avenue. And as years passed, after that, managing that building when we were small children, she ends up moving for a little while to Kentucky because her husband was from Kentucky. And a lot of people from the South back in the days, they used to leave the South and go to Detroit because that's where all the work was, a lot of manufacturing jobs and stuff like that. And that's how a lot of Southern people ended up in Michigan and stuff like that, in Detroit. And they would move, they would stay some years in Detroit, then move back to their hometown or their husband's hometown for a little while. And then they'd come back to Detroit, whatever. But anyways, getting back to the situation. She ends up moving to Kentucky with her husband because that's where he's from. And they're living there for a while. And this is a story she's told me herself. So I'm just, this is sharing it with y'all. Okay, she says while they're living in Kentucky, her husband goes to work, and it's pouring down rain. And what had happened is, in Kentucky, they got these side roads and stuff like that, and they got these little bridges that goes over creeks and stuff like that. And she tells me that he ended up getting killed. And what had happened is a bad storm came, and it was raining real hard, and it washed out the bridge. But there was no signs out or anything like that, so he actually just drove on because, it was raining real hard and you couldn't really see, and there was no road signs out or anything like that. So he actually just went off, and maybe they don't even know this. This is what I was thinking when she was telling me the story. you don't know if he was going across the bridge and it actually uh, collapsed at that point and washed away, or if the bridge was already gone and he went in and it washed away. But needless to say, he drowned and he passed away. And I knew him as a small kid, anyways. And anyways, because she had pictures of the car once they pulled the car out and stuff, and it was just so messed up that I was thinking to myself that maybe he was going across the bridge and it collapsed, and because the car was so damaged, you know what I mean? Because it seemed like if it was just already collapsed and he went in the water, it would just wash him downstream. You know what I mean? But this car was really pretty much mangled up. But, I don't know. That was just my thought on it. I thought that, either or happened, But needless to say, he passed away. Well, she ends up having a lawsuit against the state of Kentucky, I guess for wrongful death or whatever. And she's telling me this story, so, and she ends up, winning a lump sum of money and whatever. But then when she does that, she comes back to Michigan. And this is how she ends up in Oak Park. And she buys a house in Oak Park. And when she buys this house, what it is, I think she calls my mom and dad. Because I'm thinking that I think my mom and dad, or my dad turned her on to a dude named Mr. Cadena. I mean, not Mr. Cadena. Oh, damn, what was his name? I forget, but it was this older white gentleman with bald head, and he drove a big blue Cadillac. And my dad used to do a lot of painting. Mr. Cunningham, that was his name, Mr. Cunningham. I believe they turned her on to him that he had a house for sale. Because I believe the house that she actually bought in Oak Park, if I remember correctly, she bought it from Mr. Cunningham that my dad worked for. And my dad used to do a lot of painting and stuff like that for him. But anyways, she buys this house. It's really nice. It's in a nice, at this time in Oak Park, it was a nice neighborhood and everything. And actually, her, the way she became my godmother is her and my mom are real tight, like sisters. And so anyways, she buys this house. She buys all brand new furniture, and it's got a garage out in the backyard, but it's not connected to the house. It's just in the backyard. And I used to go out there a lot and stay with my friend, and which really, her kids, her sons are my street brothers, basically. And but I used to go out there and stay with him a lot. Sometimes he would come to Detroit and stay with me, but we used to go out and stay out there for the weekend or whatever. And as time passed, she goes on a camping trip. And while she's going on a camping trip, her house burns down or catches fire and burns up or whatever. And this was a really nice house. And then she tells me that when she comes back, the house is burned up and everything, and I forget how the house caught fire or whatever, but it burned up, and then she said that the insurance people called her to come and pick up her insurance check for the house. So she said when she went down to the insurance company to get the check, the police arrested her. And then she said, and this is years later, she's telling me the story, and and then she said the police arrest her, and then she gets locked up. And I think what the deal was is they was accusing her of burning the house or some shit like that, but she was not even in the vicinity. She wasn't even there. But anyways, she ends up getting convicted, and she ends up going to jail, going to prison for this house burning down. And but in the midst of that, when the house burns and she goes to jail, her kids are actually staying at my house just for a little while. And then I think her oldest daughter ends up taking them in. And some of this stuff I'm present for, but this is the story, about the house and all that. She's telling me about that. And anyways, her son, which is my street brother, me and him are real tight and close. And so they're at our house, but then they have to go. Oh, after the fact, after the house gets burned and everything like that, they end up renting one of our old apartments on Trumbull. And at this time, we're living on Elm Street. And they rent the downstairs apartment in Detroit City. So, it's kind of like moving from Oak Park to Detroit is basically what it was. And but anyways, while they were staying there, she had a friend of hers. They stayed with us for a little bit, but then she had a friend of hers take care of the kids, and she was like, calling her and stuff like that from being locked up. And then what had happened is something happened, because see, what it was kind of crazy, because she told me that she thinks it was all over money, is what. And she said what had happened is she had that girl, and they had an agreement, and it was a girl she knew that was going to take care of her kids while she was doing her time. Well, then somehow her oldest daughter wanted custody of the kids. And she told me it was cause of money, because what had happened is when her husband had passed away, each kid she had got a check because her husband passed away. And then I guess she was getting a check, maybe for a widow's check or whatever. And then also she got a lot of money for when her husband passed away. But anyway, so she was telling me that she had it set up where that girl was going to take care of the kids. And I know this girl too, But anyways, she had it set up, but somehow her oldest daughter got involved. I don't know if she got a lawyer or she just took it upon herself because she was the oldest sibling, you know what I mean? And the lady that was taking care of the kids wasn't a family member, you know. And so she ends up coming to pick the kids up one day. And I don't know if she got a judgment to pick them up or if she just came and got them. I don't know, because they was all minor kids, you know. Anyways, my friend, he takes off running, but when he takes off running, he gets punched in the stomach. And then he takes off running, and this is what he told me, you know. And he shows up at my house on Elm Street. Well, then I'm trying to hide him, you know, because he don't want to go. He wanted to stay in the neighborhood, and he knew that something was going wrong because he knew that his mom done set it up where that lady was going to take care of him and stuff like that, and then this happened. But later my godmother told me it was basically over money, is what it was all over, you know. And it was kind of crazy because greed makes people do stupid things, and years later people probably know that they was wrong by doing it or whatever. But anyways, he came, and I was trying to hide him and stuff like that, because we're like, me and him's around about 11 years old at this time. And I'm trying to hide him, and I tell my mom, hey, can he stay with us and all that? And my mom was like, well, I got to talk to his mom before we could do something like that. And then she was like, we don't even know if they've got court papers or whatever to take them or whatever. We didn't know that part. And they might have, I don't know. But then so he ends up they end up showing up over at our house, and they come to pick him up. So he goes. So the incident that he told me, he shared some of the information with me years later, that he had went over there to stay with him, but they ended up putting him in a boys' home or whatever. And things like that. And then later, his mom ended up getting out of jail, and she ends up moving on, I think it was 37th, 38th Street off of Michigan Avenue. Well, then I think he was able to come home for visits, or she went to get him for visits or something, but she's working on trying to get him out of the boys' home. And but when you get incarcerated and stuff, there's a lot of things you got to do, take care of your business as far as being free on the streets, and then make progress to try to get your kids back. And she was telling me that it was real hard trying to do that. But anyways, once he knew where his mom lived, because he had been there a couple times, because I think the ranch, and he told me it's called Team Ranch, but I think the ranch would actually bring him home for visits or something like that. So he actually knew, and he knew the area too. So he actually knew where his mom lived. So he started running away from the Team Ranch, trying to, go back home with his mom. And I think he did it 2 or 3 times. The Team Ranch is like way out Michigan. And so he had to basically hitchhike down the freeway to get all the way to Detroit. And anyways, he said he did it for a couple times, and then after, I think after he got a certain age or something, they used to like come and pick him up every time he'd run away, but then the last time they just knew he wanted to go home, so they just let him be, and so he was home at that point, you know. And then later on, she was telling me that she had to get her other two girls and her other youngest son back from her oldest daughter. So she said it took her a long time to get that worked out. And then when she got that worked out, uh, I ended up going to stay with them, and over time, I ended up staying with them for quite some time. I was basically one of her children too, you know what I mean? But I stayed with them, off and on for a long period of time. And, you know, I was just basically part of their family, and she was my godmother, and her kids was, basically like my family. But anyways, as time passes, she wants to. There's a lot of stories in between all this, but I'm just getting to some certain issues. So as time passes, she's wanting to move to the south. So, and I'm staying with them at the time. And then she knows that my dad, because she was friends with my dad and my mother, and she knows that my dad lives somewhere in Tennessee, but she's not for sure. And then she asks me, she's like, "Where does your dad live?" And I said, "He lives in a little town in Tennessee." And she said, "You think we could find a house for rent over there if we go?" No, what had happened at first, the plan was going to move to Birmingham, Alabama. I don't know what the reason for that was, but anyways, because we're still young, we're old enough to drive, but we're still young. And but anyways, we're planning on going to Birmingham, Alabama. So once we get to Tennessee, and before this happened, we used to travel a lot back and forth to Kentucky and stuff like that. And but anyways, once we get to Tennessee, we stop at a Waffle House to eat. And then when we stop at a Waffle House to eat, we're talking, and then she says, my godmother tells me, she's like, "You got your dad's phone number?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Why don't you call him and ask him, is there jobs in his town?" Because he lived in a little country town, and it's like an Andy Griffith town. And is there jobs in his town? And if we could possibly find a house for rent over there. So I called him from the Waffle House. And he's like, "Yeah, y'all could." He said, "Actually, we got a house beside us that's for sale, but I'm sure we could find y'all something for rent if you don't want to, if you don't want to buy the house." And then I was like, "All right, I think we're just going to come your way and just check that town out." And he said there was a few jobs in that town. And that way me and her son could get a job and stuff like that. Anyways, we get to the town, and we got this truck loaded down, and then we got a car, and then it's like three, four, five, six of us. So we get to my dad's, and he's married to this other lady, And we get to their house, and then having coffee, and then we're trying to find a place to rent because she wasn't interested in buying that house behind. It was a nice house, but I don't. Uh, she really liked to travel and move around and stuff like that. That's what she enjoyed doing, And we liked it too because we was all the time traveling stuff like that. But anyways, we find this house for rent in this little town, and then we go to the town, go through town, and like I said, it's Andy Griffith Town, and I mean really Andy Griffith Town because it was a big shocker to us because we was from Detroit. And anyways, when we went through the main area of the town, it had like a square park, and then it had benches. It had older folks, and they were whittling, and stuff like that. So we was tripping out about it, and it kind of looked like the Andy Griffith Town. And so, anyways, we go to the house, and this dude, uh, these people, we meet them, and they're still finishing up on painting the house that we're going to rent. And it's a nice country house, got a wood burning stove and all that, a big back porch, and it's pretty nice. And you could drive when you pull in the driveway, you drive around the back of the house. It had like a U-shaped driveway, and it was just country to the bone, and it was nice. But it was an old house. And anyways, we go in there, we meet him. Come to find out, he's from Kentucky, and so is my godmother, and so I don't know. They talked for a long time. I don't know if they known some people, but I think that dude was from a different town in Kentucky than where she was from. But he was telling us his story because he was a little older than his old lady, and they were both telling us their story, how they met. And he said that he had met, she was renting an apartment from him in Kentucky, and she had a bunch of kids, and they ended up just started dating, and then they hooked up, and that's what the situation was. But anyways, he's like, yeah, well, I could rent y'all this. I could rent y'all this house, and he said, but it won't be ready for a couple more days because we got some finishing up to do here and stuff like that. And so we was like, all right, we'll take the house. And then I had a truck. Well, we had a truck that was full of the furniture and all that stuff. So he said, well, how about y'all get rid of the truck? Because I think it was a rental or whatever. But he said, how about y'all get rid of the truck, and then y'all can use my van to move your stuff from your dad's. Because the plan was we was going to put all the stuff in my dad's. It was a garage underneath his house, but a basement. And we was going to put all the stuff in there because we had to return the rental. So we unloaded it, returned the rental, and the reason we did that because the guy said the house wouldn't be ready for a couple more days. So, anyways, we get over there, and finally the day comes where we're able to rent the house. But meanwhile, when we're talking to him about the house, he's got an upstairs attic, and there's a door by the kitchen. He's got a padlock on it. He's like, but if I rent you this house, you don't have access to upstairs. You got to leave this padlock on the door. And then he said he just had his belongings up there, but he had a lot of, he said, paint and paint thinner and just a whole bunch of stuff, up there. And we agreed to that and stuff like that. And anyways, we the day comes, we're getting ready to move in, so he gives me the keys to his van, and this is a long gray van, and it was empty. It had two seats in the front, but it had some small shelves on each side of the van where you could like put some tools or something, but it was kind of wide open. And I knew we could use that van, but I knew it was going to take several loads because we had quite a bit of stuff. So, anyways, I got younger, my younger brother, which is her youngest son. He rides with me. And my older brother, he drives the car because we're going to put stuff in the car too, in boxes and stuff like that. So he drives the car, and we go over to my dad's. I back, and at this time it's summer, it's hot, and I got pants on and stuff like that. So I told my little brother, I said, I'm gonna go up and change my clothes and put some shorts on and stuff like that because it's so hot. And plus, we're gonna move all this stuff. And he's like, all right. So I backed the van up toward the house. I put it in park. Me and him get out the van. I go in the back. There's a door beside the garage door, and then a staircase where you can go up to the house. So I go up to the house and up the steps, and then I hear him hollering outside. So when I come back, I turn around and go back down, and the van is actually taken off by itself. And then there's like a barbed wire fence. Well, it's like a farm fence, kind of like dividing my dad's place from the place that was for sale. And it goes right through that fence, and then it's headed for that new house. And he's trying to chase the van, but he's way back away, and I had just came out seeing what was going on. But it looked like it was going to hit the house, but the ground was kind of at a slope, so it kind of like turned, and then it went toward this wooded area in the back and went through the woods, and then it was gone. So me and him went to the woods. We didn't know what was over there, and it just looked like a wooded area. But what it was is a strip of wooded area, but then there's a big bluff, and then way down there was a creek, and I think it was like maybe 40 feet down with a bunch of rocks and everything. So this van